Allegra, thanks for your time. You're at the vigil last night. It was a moving tribute, and it was clear to me that this is a community that now lives with, a kind of shattered peace.
Look, I think it was a very moving vigil last night, and I think really important for everybody to come together, because as everyone knows, and I think know, Laura, we're all connected somehow, both to Westfield Bondi Junction, but many of us personally connected to the victims and their families as well. So I think it was really important for us to come together, and I think it will take us a long time for the community to really deal with what has happened. And I think many of us are particularly thinking of our young people, and the impact on their mental health, including those violent images that they saw.
Yeah, look, I think everyone grieves differently and at different rates and in different ways. And there is a degree of anger as well that this could happen. Anger that is not directed towards anyone in particular. But what do you think needs to happen? What is within government's capacity to help the healing process?
Look, there are some really big issues that I think that the attack, I think, really brought into focus. And one of those is absolutely violence against women. And we know that 5 of the 6 victims were women. Most of the people who were injured were women, and most of the men involved who were injured were actually in security, so actually protecting other people. So I think, but this is an issue in this community as it is in any other community. And when I speak to the local police, 50%, up to 50% of their time is spent, for instance, on domestic violence. So I think from a violence against women, it is a hugely important issue. And for me, one of the big pushes is to how do we make sure we support, the grassroots organisations in our community, but around our community, that support violence, to support the survivors of violence against women. But also, how do we, as Mark Dreyfus said, I think this week, how do we make sure, that we are setting respectful relationships, working on consent, making sure that people and everyone in our community knows, and men know and take responsibility to not take forward that violence against women. I think that's absolutely critical.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I saw Mark Dreyfus's comments about men in particular, but I don't want to diminish what happened, not last weekend, the weekend before, but I do think it's important to point out the men who really stepped up on that day.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. And I think, I think there are many men who stepped up, both the ones we've seen on the videos and also those, who helped in terms of getting people into shops and protecting. And this it isn't all men, but there's absolutely an issue in relation to violence against women that, I think the men across the country need to take responsibility for, in terms of setting the tone with each other. And I think the other piece is mental health. We saw both in the perpetrator, who, has had significant mental health issues, and how that, we're still, waiting to see, but it seems that was a significant factor. And, how do we make sure that people get the help that they need, and the families the support that they need to deal, to support them in times like that. But also, I worry a lot about, our young people, and, speaking to mental health experts, what they often say is, you need to get and support people early, in terms of mental health problems, because the earlier you reach people and treat people, the greater chance you actually have of preserving that mental health and well-being. And so for me, that is a big area. And we've actually got a youth action committee here who had already said youth mental health was their major area they'd like to focus on. And so we'll be working really closely with them on saying, in our community in Wentworth, how do we support young people in particular, with mental health?
Patrick McGorry has spoken at length about this. He's a former Australian of the Year, and he has been able to make serious inroads here, but it all comes down to money in many ways. Surely the upcoming federal budget, as it's being planned right now by Jim Chalmers and the Cabinet, should have a strong focus on mental health, shouldn't it? This is a reminder that it needs to.
I think absolutely it's a reminder that mental health spending is absolutely critically important. And it's also how we spend the money, because I think we need to, like all government spending, we need to make sure we're working on spending that money on what makes the biggest difference. And so I think that's absolutely critical. That that the budget covers that as well.
Okay, Allegra Spender, thanks so much for your time. We'll see you soon.